there's been research done when that happens, and the baby's neurons all light up and stay lit up. All these electrical impulses happen, and the baby's brains stay lit up for up to 30 minutes when there's interaction. So it's so important. And as adults, we just naturally smile and goo and gar at the babies, but it's actually really important.
Hello and welcome everybody to my podcast Renew Motherhood. And this episode is designing a brain-friendly room for your child. And for this, I have got an incredible guest here, Dr. Kathryn Murray. Please briefly introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? Yes, what can we expect from this topic from you?
Hi, Blanka. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on the podcast. And I'm from Australia. Some of your listeners might have picked up the accent, so I am from Australia. I've been in the education field for over 40 years now, and in that time I've worked with children and families for 25 years as a classroom teacher, and then with pre-service teachers in the university setting, and then with families and early childhood teachers and primary school or elementary school, depending on where you come from, teachers in my own consultancy business called Future Strong Education. And I've developed a process for teachers and for parents so that they can set up their home environment or their classroom environment in a way that supports children's developing brains. Because we all have a brain, funnily enough. We have something in common, all of us. And we all have particular needs in our brain, but children's brains, especially in the first 5 years, are developing rapidly. And what happens in those first 5 years sort of sets things in motion for the rest of their lives. So those first 5 years with the development of young children's brains is so important. That's what I share when I work with people all over the world, sharing my Brain Set Environments formula and the importance of setting up an environment for young children so that they thrive.
Well, I think this is wonderful because it's a topic that people or parents not necessarily think about, right? So they have got so many tasks, especially if they are new, if it's a new mom, if it's a young mom or a first-time mom. So there are so many things to think about, but this is actually something that you can prepare before you can give birth to a child, right? So I think it can be very, very helpful to get to know something around this. So what's one tiny change a mom can make today to start creating a calm, brain-friendly space?
Well, my mantra in Brain Set is a calm brain is a thinking brain. And when we set up an environment for children that is calm, it means that they can be creative, they can learn easily, they can remember things easily, and they can start to build those deepened neural pathways and as they experience more things that we provide. So for parents, it's important that we remember that we want to give children opportunities to explore. There's a book written by John Medina, and he talks about 12 brain rules. And one of those brain rules is that we are all born natural explorers. So for parents, if we remember that children are meant to explore and put things to their mouths and touch things and crawl and play with different textures of things, that's a really important step. So for new parents and, with a newborn baby, just looking at them and smiling and gooing and garring and making all of those beautiful noises that we do with babies and reciprocate that's setting them up for success too, because the baby is able to attach to us. So we bond with the baby and the baby is getting this secure base. And when the baby is feeling secure and loved and safe, the bottom part of their brain stem is in a safe space. It has that sense of safety. The amygdala in the limbic system above the ear feels safe, And then the baby can really interact and deepen those neural pathways because of the exploration that can happen. And that's the thinking part of the brain. So when we talk about brain set, it's the S, the E, and the T. So when, as parents with young babies, little babies, we need to give them that secure base. We need to allow them to attach, which means we need to attend to their needs. If a baby is crying, we need to attend to the baby because that's their way of communicating with us. And as the babies get a little older, give them things to explore, give them things of different texture. You know, we all know that babies put everything into their mouths, even their toes, and that's because their lips are the most sensitive organ in their body to explore with. So everything goes to their mouth. So being mindful of what you have around so that it's safe for babies and, you know, they're not going to swallow them and there's no choking hazard, obviously. But also just giving them lots of different things to touch, to play with, take them outside, put them on the grass, all of those things that support that exploring nature that babies are born with. But also making sure that we deepen those relationships with the baby by attending to their needs, making sure they have this safe space, that the babies have that sense of safety, so that they can use their brain and deepen those neural pathways. Now, developmentally, of course, babies go through all of these different changes. So by 6 to 9 months, they don't want to go to grandma or uncle or auntie. They want to stay with the person they've attached to, the mum or the dad usually, or the primary carer, we say. So when often parents have to go back to work or for some reason the babies have to go into an early learning centre or a childcare centre, you might call it, it's important that there's adults there that also will allow the babies to attach to them. So they still have that secure base. And they're still encouraged to explore things and touch things. And there's a lot of interaction, facial interaction, because when we make eye contact with babies and smile at them, there's been research done when that happens and the baby's neurons all light up and stay lit up. All of these electrical impulses happen and the baby's brains stay lit up for, up to 30 minutes when there's interaction. So it's so important. And as adults, we just naturally smile and goo and gar at the babies, but it's actually really important that we make a point of doing that and playing those games of peekaboo. Put your hands over. You go on, you're here. You go on, you're here. Peekaboo, peekaboo. That's important for babies too, because that is teaching them that even though they can't see you, you come back. Can't see you, you come back. So it's really important that you play peekaboo too. So all of those things that we naturally do, there's actually a reason behind it. And we need to continue to do that as young parents or, parents with babies.
So just be intuitively and do what feels good as a parent, even if, someone is watching you and think, wow, what's she doing?
That's right, because whatever you're doing intuitively is probably the right thing.
Yeah. So what would you say? What colors should parents avoid in children's rooms and why? Are certain colors better for calming? I can remember that my midwife said when I don't know which one of my 4 it was, but she said green is very good in the beginning. And I cannot remember now why, but maybe you can explore something about this.
Well, there was a lot of research many years ago about the type of colours you should put in babies' nurseries. And, traditionally people, if it was a baby girl, people would paint their rooms pink. And, if it was a baby boy, it'd be blue and things like that. In classrooms too, there was a lot of research around having reds for inspiration and yellow for enthusiasm. And there's a whole range of, associated colours with different emotions. And that was first developed more in the business world, and the education world stole it, and parents just started painting rooms whatever colour they thought was good, I think.
Yeah.
The research now is around having a more neutral palette for children. So in your home and in their rooms, you can have the colours of nature. And that calms the brain down. And Blanka, you and I have both had 4 young children. You've got the 4 girls and I've got 2 girls and 2 boys. Mine are in their 30s now, a little older than yours. But we've both had lots of children, and probably we've both done the colour thing and tried to make it bright and appealing for the children, the babies. But now the research is more a neutral palette. And you brighten that up with bright cushions or, bright hanging mobiles and things from the ceiling for the babies to look at. But having a calm backdrop like the beiges and the olive greens and the pale blues, the colours of nature, because that's very calming for the brain and helps children to feel safe too, because it's the colours of nature.
Yes, that's great. Oh, I love this. So what are the biggest mistakes parents make when setting up a playroom or nursery? Have you experienced something?
I think parents have the best of intentions, and so they don't ever intend to do the wrong thing when they're setting up a nursery or a playroom. But I think one of the biggest temptations, I guess, is to put a lot of colour into it and have the mats on the floor with the alphabet all over them, and have bright walls and too much. I wrote an article not so long ago called Clatter, Clutter and Colour, and it related to brain confusion, because when we have too many things for a child's brain to take in and process and make sense of, it's confusing for the brain. So instead of us providing a whole lot of materials and thinking, oh, look, we're giving them lots of choice, that can actually be confusing for the brain. So having things in neat, tidy boxes or containers that are nature-based, so some cane baskets rather than brightly red and yellow plastic boxes, have some nice natural things in the playroom or the area that the children usually gravitate to, and just have a few things out. If you've got building blocks, you don't have to put the whole lot out. Just put some out and put some other things out as well. And, and you can add to them later if you want to, but you don't have to put everything out, just a little bit at a time. And we don't want to have too many things on the walls as well. So it's all, it feels cluttered. We need to have a bit of order. There needs to be space for the children to move. We need to have smaller little spaces for children to just go into a corner and sit and draw or create things or whatever it is that you want to put into your playroom. There's a lot of research around children feeling a lot more engaged and a lot more comfortable if they just have these small little defined spaces to work in. And often as parents we think, oh no, we'll give them this great big room. Then that can be their playroom, or we'll give them a great big space somewhere so that they can run around and do things, which again is all really good and well intended. But for the brain, that sense of safety and that feeling of safety served in smaller little defined spaces. Outside in your garden or in your yard, it's great to have some running space, of course, but also have some little cubby house areas and have some little cozy little spots so children can go and, feel enclosed like a cubby house, because that feels safe and secure as well. So we're thinking about keeping the SET of the brain, the sense of safety, the feeling of being safe, being loved, the sense of belonging, being valued. All of those things combined allows children to think clearly, build really strong memories, manage their emotions, manage their behaviours a little better, be able to adapt their thinking to different circumstances and different contexts. All of those things happen really easily when children's brains are calm. Remember, a calm brain is a thinking brain. And it's the same for us.
That's so
same
great.
As adults.
Oh, I think, yes, a small steps, small things can really make such an impact in the development of the brain, of the children's brain, and actually calm down the parents too. Would you say this? It's similar, or do parents need different colors, different things to calm down? What would you say?
No, our brains all have the same needs. So we all do a lot better if we have, calming colours and there's not too much clutter. Think of when you go into a supermarket and you're looking for some particular things. And as you look around, all you see are shelves and things stacked up to the ceiling, and there's just things everywhere, and everything's bright, and there's loud music, and some stores are like that, and it's just overwhelming sometimes. Then think of a place where you go and it's a little bit calmer. There's more, there's the things are displayed on shelves in a much more ordered way, and there's less of them on the shelves, and it feels a lot more spacious, and it feels a lot more manageable. And that's what we're wanting for children, because then we can think a lot clearer. We're not trying to, our brain isn't trying to take in all of this sensory input and make sense of it all and process it all, and then try and make a decision about what we're going to do with all of this information. It can be sensory overload. And that's what we want to avoid with young children, because when there is sensory overload, that's when we get behaviour issues, because children, they can't cope. So they're trying to find a way to manage. So we have behaviours, sometimes we'll have tantrums, sometimes it's just overwhelming and they get very tired. And it's the same for adults. You know, when we're trying to manage a lot of things all at once, we get quite tired and we might get a bit irritable and a bit cranky with people. It's the same for children. So a calm brain is a thinking brain.
Yes. Just comes in my mind, are there researchers, do you know about this? If too much around the baby with colors, noises, I don't know, such things, can develop ADHD?
I was reading some information about ADHD the other day, and I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
I think that that's a different conversation.
Completely different.
Yeah, a different conversation altogether. But what you might see are some ADHD behaviours because the children are overwhelmed. And they're trying to manage all of this sensory input. And there's some children who are sensory seekers, so that some children thrive on having, a lot of things to look at or to touch. And there's other children who are sensory avoiders, who would be much happier in a, much more clinical sort of environment. I'm sure you know adults that are like that too. Some people like, a busy house with lots of books and lots of everything, and others like a very minimalistic approach. So there's, with your children too, there's sensory avoiders and sensory seekers. So with my 4 children, I had a sensory avoider. One of them was a sensory avoider and just didn't like a whole lot of things around, and would get frustrated if there was too much stimulation. So we've got to keep that in mind as well. We're not all the same. We don't all like the same things. And when you're a parent and you know your children well, and we're deepening those strong bonds and relationships with our children, we're also needing to understand what is too stimulating for them and what is okay. But I would err on the side of caution. So less is better than having too many things out, because that can be overwhelming. And then that causes other issues, as I've said before. Children find it difficult to manage their thinking, manage their behaviour. So that's what we're thinking about.
Yes, would you say that nowadays children are doing less with their senses? I came across this because my eldest one, I think, was in the kindergarten, and then those women who are taking care of the children, one of them told me, "Oh, your daughter is so smart. She's just placing her whole arm into the color and draws with her whole body." But there are so many kids now, she told me this, 16, 17 years ago now. Yeah. They don't even like to put their finger into the color to paint with a finger. So they try to avoid this. Let's take something else to draw with it, but not with my body, not with my fingers. So would you say that there is something moving backwards?
Well, there's a couple of things about what you've just said there. I think to take a step back, we all learn through our senses. That's the way we learn. Our brain sits inside our skull, but without sensory input, the brain is just a big piece of meat, really, because without seeing things and taking information in through our eyes and, smelling things and hearing things and touching things through our nervous system and our nerves, the brain doesn't get any stimulation. So the more we can stimulate the brain using the senses, so having things that we can smell, things that we can touch, all of those things. So parents cooking with their children is really important. Allowing children to touch things, roll the dough out, help plant plants in the garden. All of those sensory things are really important to deepen those neural pathways and to deepen those relationships between the child and the parent. So really important. So that's one part of it. Now the next part is you were saying about the lack of sensory input that seems to be developing. And I think technology's got a lot to do with that. I think children are on the screens a lot more, so they tend to swipe. I don't know if you've ever seen a young baby be given a book or a magazine and they try to swipe. Instead of turn the page, they try to swipe.
Wow.
Because that's what they're used to doing. Wow. And there's a device, you may have seen this too in your part of the world, there's a device that you can hang on the pram, on the stroller that you're pushing the baby with. And the device, it's sort of like a container, and you slip the iPad in there. So as you're taking the baby for the walk, the baby can look at something on the iPad rather than talking to the baby about, look at the green trees and look at the red car and let's count all the flowers. Instead of having those conversations and communicating with children like we should do to build their oral language and to build their vocabulary and again increase that relationship and that connection with the child, they're given screens. And the parents are walking along either on their phone or texting as they're pushing the pram along as well. So, and how many times have we been out for dinner and you'll see a family sit down and everybody gets their device out and sits around a table at the restaurant and they're all just on their devices. So, I think a lot of that sensory input, that simple sensory input, is being pushed aside for the sake of these screens. And children aren't outside as much in exploring nature, exploring the garden, or exploring the being outside and just seeing what's happening. They're not picking up sticks. They're not, imagining things as much. They're not being creative, thinking of games. They're not doing that as much because there's more screen time. There's a societal issue around that too, where parents are a little worried about allowing their children out now, outside, because maybe, something might happen to them outside. So there's a little bit of that as well. But I think we need to get over that. Children need to be outside and they need to be exploring and they need to be allowed to think and encouraged to explore and think and away from screens. And I think that's something that we don't want to let slip by us. We don't want to let this generation become more screen-oriented. We still want them to be interacting with people, not interacting with the screen, because that's not true interaction anyway. That's sort of one-sided. So we want them to be having their serve and return conversations with people, and so that they can read people, they can understand the nuances of getting along with somebody, all those social and emotional things that happen just because you're with people, and also having a range of sensory input is so important too. That's probably a very long answer to a fairly easy question, I guess. But there's two parts to it. First is the sensory.
Very detailed.
The second is the technology.
I love this. Yes, I love this because it goes deeper, and I always love to go to the root cause, really, to say, okay, where does it start? Where can we look at and what can we change here? Because like you said before, sometimes little changes have got a huge impact. And let's start with those little ones. So I came across Marie Kondo. I don't know how you explain her.
Yeah.
Maybe you have heard about her.
Yes.
She seems to be very popular. So yes, do you like to explain something about this woman?
Well, I only know a little bit about Marie Kondo because she's a lady who tidies up things. And she and she teaches people how to fold their clothes in these small little things and put them neatly into drawers or into their cupboards and closets, and just how to tidy up. So that's pretty much all I know about Marie Kondo. But I think what you're sort of saying is that having things really organized and I don't know, things in the right space is good for children's brains too, and it is. Having something organized. We don't want to have it too organized so that children feel like they can't take anything out because they'll mess it up. But we do need to have places for things so that when children are putting things away, they can see where it goes. So there might be a basket, and on the basket there'll be a picture of the blocks. And so they know, that's where the blocks go. Be a picture of, I don't know, the puzzles or something. And so they know that that's where it goes. So that we're teaching children that there is a place for things, and when they're using things, they need to put them back away in their place. But I don't know, my drawers aren't like Marie Kondo's. The way she does her, that's very tidy.
Okay. So are there certain textures, lights, or sounds we just covered a little that you mentioned? If the environment is created or should be created with special things. So are there special textures, lights, or sounds better for a child's learning and relaxation?
Well, we talked about the general colour. We've talked about not having things too cluttered and being relatively organised, but not overly organised. We're just neat and tidy, so that children see where things are meant to be. We've talked a bit about that. We've talked about not having too much screens used as toys or as babysitters. Some people would say. And having more sensory input and having children out in nature as much as they can. Natural light is really good for children as well because it helps with that circadian rhythm, so that they, when they're out in the sunlight, they're getting the vitamin D. And then, when the sun goes down, the circadian rhythm in the brain means that the brain knows, it's gotten dark. That means we've got to go to sleep. So having children outside in the sun helps the brain recognise, we're outside now, it's sunny, it's daytime, we're supposed to be awake. And then, take them in if you want them to have an afternoon rest or sleep. Well, then it needs to be in a darkened room so that their brain goes, it's dark now, we need to go to sleep. So having those sort of light and dark ideas, I guess, is something that's important for parents with children at home. Remembering too that children are they're very small. They're not obviously as tall as the adult. So as an adult, when we go into our homes and we look around, we can see over the top of furniture. We can see, over the top of the kitchen bench. Children can't. So I always suggest to parents and to teachers, when I'm working with teachers in their classrooms, for them to get down on their knees and get themselves to the height of the child. And then look around and just see what it looks like from the child's perspective. So you can do that from the door of your house. So as a child is coming in, what do they see? Does it look like they're just walking into a big brick wall because you've got a bookshelf there or something? Or can they see how to get into the house along a fairly easy pathway? When you're in the house, go to about, in the middle of the house somewhere, and again, get down on your knees and look around and see what the child might see. Now, children who have experienced any sort of trauma, and the trauma could be being sick and being in hospital. The trauma could be something that made them feel a little threatened or a little frightened during the day. That could be enough to be trauma. To calm the brain, children, all of us, but we're talking about children, need to be able to see the way from one place to another. We call it wayfinding. And so that's why I'm saying get down on your knees and have a look whether a young child could see the way through from the front door through to the living room, let's say. Or are there shelves, or are there, other sort of partitions there so children actually can't see the way to go. So they have to take a bit of a risk and come into the house and then work out the way to go. And that might sound a little crazy because you think, well, it's our house. We live here. It's our house. But for the brain, there's a split second of threat. Like, I don't know where to go.
Wow.
So we need to be mindful of that, and have a fairly open entry for the children so that they can see where to go. Same if children are visiting your house. They need to have that as well. And when I'm working with teachers or parents, I often say, it's like when you go to a new shopping centre or a shopping mall and you haven't been there before, and someone drops you off at the front door and they say, you've got a really important meeting in 10 minutes at the coffee shop. And you've never been there before. You don't know where the coffee shop is. So you go through the door and you look around, and there's this, you can imagine, little instant of panic, like, where's the coffee shop? It's an important meeting. I've got to get there. I've got 10 minutes. Where is the coffee shop? And then over to the right, you see a little sign that says coffee shop this way. So you walk to that sign, but still you don't know where to go. So you're still feeling a little anxious. But then further down, you see another sign that says coffee shop this way. So you go to that sign, and then you see the coffee shop. Then your brain relaxes because you found it.
Yes.
So they were the signposts. They were the wayfinding signposts. So imagine that in a classroom or in a home environment. So, children are finding their way, even though it's your home and you think, well, of course they know where to go. It's that split second of threat or being a little unsure in the brain that stimulates the level of cortisol, and the cortisol floods into the top part of the brain. And then that's when children start to get a little overwhelmed, or they might start to get a little bit, erratic. Their behaviour they might act up with their behaviour. They can't remember what you've just asked them to do because now their memory is clouded with the cortisol. So you might have said to them, go inside and take your shoes and your socks off and put them away. And you'll find the shoes kicked off somewhere, and that's it. Because they can't remember, because the cortisol kicked in. And the message literally leaked out of between the synapses, and that's a whole other story as well. But there's this thing called brain leakage, and if you give children too many instructions, they can't do it, particularly if they're under a little bit of stress because they're feeling a little bit of threat for whatever reason. So there's a lot going on with young children and their brains, and because they're developing and they're taking in so much and they're trying to make sense of the world. There's a lot going on for young children.
And I think there is a lot of misunderstanding, really, between parents and children, because parents might feel affected by children's behaviors and think, what's going on here? I don't like this. Please don't do this. But with a deeper understanding, as parents, we can handle this, right? So we can guide better.
Yeah, because if we understand what's going on in a child's brain, and it helps our frustration level, because then we think, maybe they're not just being naughty. Maybe they haven't understood, or maybe that those 3 instructions I gave them, take your shoes off, socks off, and put them away. Maybe that's too many instructions for them. Maybe I'll just start with 1, take your shoes off. And then stop and let them do that. Then give the 2nd instruction and let them do that. Then give the 3rd instruction. So, if we start to think about, well, what's actually happening for this child? And when I do behaviour presentations, when we talk about children's behaviour, I always say to the parents and the teachers, look with curiosity, not animosity. And by that I mean, look at what's going on behind that child's behaviour, rather than just getting annoyed with them and thinking they're doing the wrong thing. What's going on for those children? Are they tired? Are they hungry? Do they not really understand what they're supposed to do? Are they just a bit irritable today? They're not feeling well. Have a think about what might be going on for that child, and why they are acting the way they're acting. It's the same as adults. Why do we do some of the things we do?
Yes, always look behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't assume. Always look behind and see what the behaviour, what's behind that behaviour, what's causing that behaviour, and then we can respond instead of react.
Right. So if a last question here, I would love to listen more about this. But okay, our time is running here. If a mom only has 10 minutes and a few dollars to create a calm zone for her child, what should she do first? What would you suggest?
Well, I have a saying that I use, and it's create small but significant changes. And so a small but significant change could be just pulling the couch out from the wall a little bit and leaving a space between the wall and the couch and putting a little blanket and a little pillow in there and a book and making it a small little cozy, safe space for the child to crawl into. And that's just simple and easy, and it takes no money and it takes no time, pretty much. The other thing to do is the research says this, that if you can spend just 10 minutes with your child each day, 10 minutes is ideal, but even 1 minute with your child each day and actually talk to them, ask them about not how was your day, which shoes do you like best? And why do you like those shoes? And what's your favorite color? Which ones do you like? And just spend a minute really connecting with your child. And if you've got a few children, finding a minute, you can probably do that, finding a minute. The other thing is if you've got multiple children, take them outside and just do something just with one child at a time to deepen those relationships too. So it might be, Blanka, come and plant some flowers with me out in the garden. Let's just have you and I have some time together and, let's go and do that. So you go outside, you do this shared experience together. And at the end of it, you say, Blanka, I'm so happy to have spent a little bit of time with you. That was so nice. Thank you. So it's a special time. So you're making a point, just as you would a friend, you're making a special time for that one child and you're making it, that time is just for them, and you say thank you at the end of it. So you're deepening and building those relationships. And if we do that when children are young, they will continue to talk to us as they get older. And when they're teenagers and we really want them to talk to us, they probably still will.
Wow, yes, I love this. Great. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So I know people will probably like to know more about you. What is your offer? Where can people reach out to you or contact you?
Well, I've got a website called Future Strong Education, so www.futurestrongeducation. And I have another one called Brain Set Formula, so www.brainsetformula, all one word, .com. And so you can contact me through there. On the Future Strong Education website, there's a course called Happy Kids, Happy Parents that you can enroll in, and you can utilise that course, and that gives you a lot more information about what I've just been talking about. An early learning centre or childcare centre, and you would like your team or your staff to know a little bit more about behaviours, a little bit more about the brain, and how to set up your classroom environment in a way that's going to support children's brain development. I can help you with that too, and because I do brain set environments training or overviews. I speak at conferences. I often pop up different places.
Great.
So there's a number of things you can do. Just email me and ask me, and that's admin@futurestrongeducation.com. Just email me if you'd like to, or go to the websites.
Yes, wonderful. I will place everything in the description. So please.
Thank you, Blanka.
Yes, reach out to Dr. Kathryn Murray. And I think it's wonderful to have you here. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you very much for coming here.
And
yes,
my
and
pleasure.
to all the listeners, please subscribe and stay tuned.